Everybody, this is Lana Michelson from LanaMichelson.com, and I'm here on my tree again at 12 o'clock midnight. Gorgeous night, even a little bit cool outside, so that's really nice. And today I'm going to answer a question that someone posed to me yesterday, which was a really good question. And Zale, you asked me about married relationships, how natural consequences don't quite work when you're talking about marriage relationships. And I totally agree with you on that. I'll even go one step farther and say that natural consequences only work in situations not where you want someone else to do something, to change something in themselves to suit you. That's what Stacy and Paul Martino called demand relationship, that I demand you to change so that you can please me or so that I can feel better. Okay, that's not taking personal responsibility. Natural consequences is a way of somebody learning through the natural consequences about life and how they can act in life in a way that will be better for them and better for the world at large. So if a child is not going to bed at nighttime and feeling very grouchy and very grumpy and misbehaving and starting to hurt people, people won't like that child. And that child will also learn from that when they're grouchy and grumpy, it's not going to help them. Now, telling the child you're going to go to sleep earlier because yesterday when you went to bed late, you were grouchy and grumpy, and explain to them about the fact that when they're grouchy and grumpy, people didn't like them. I'm expounding a little bit on what I said yesterday, is what's going to make it reasonable for the child as well to go to sleep earlier. Now, I'm going to take this one step further, and that is most children don't really care that much to begin with about that. As they grow older, they care more and more about that. And what they generally try to do is they try to test you to see how strong you are in terms of what you're saying. So the first night they might throw a big tantrum. Second night they'll throw a big tantrum. Third night they'll throw a bigger tantrum. When they see that you're consistent, they'll stop doing it and they'll start going to sleep. All right? And the same thing goes in a work situation where if you tell a worker that natural consequence, if you don't do what you're supposed to do in terms of work, this and this will happen, they'll try testing it a few times to see whether they can get away with it or not. When they see they can't get away with it anymore, then they'll eventually settle down into it. A marriage relationship is a very different relationship. It's a partnership. It's not where one person is trying to demand or be over the other person, teach the other person how to behave, how to act, how to work, how to present themselves. A marriage relationship is a partnership where both partners, I don't know if I would say equal or equal but different, because I don't think that the roles of the men and the roles of the women necessarily have to be the same roles. I think that however the two partners decide to divide out the roles is fine. Whether one says, I'm going to do the cooking, you're going to do the cleaning. I'll take out the garbage, you wash the floor. That's fine. Or I go out and earn the money and you stay home and do the housework, but it has to be an agreement on both sides. It's not my demand is that I'm going to go out to work and you're going to do the housework, but you both discuss it together, decide together how it's going to work and how you want it in terms of this partnership. Now, within the partnership, there will obviously be times where things might not go so smoothly, where you might feel triggered. And that goes back to something that I talked about earlier, and that whenever in a relationship I feel triggered, I always try to look back and see where is that trigger coming from? What's causing it? Is it a reasonable trigger, or is it something that just carried over remnants from my childhood, from my young adulthood, from my other marriage? And then if I see that it's something that I don't actually want to keep, I'll do the inner work to get rid of it. Now, I know the tools to do the inner work to get rid of it. Many of you might not know those tools, in which case you can come to a practitioner or you can learn the tools. Tools are really not so difficult to learn. You might have a harder time working with somebody else, but they're very simple tools you can use to work on yourself to get rid of the things in the heat of the moment, so that when these triggers get triggered, or when someone pushes your button, you can take a step back and take personal responsibility for it and not say, oh, it's their fault that I'm being triggered over here, they need to change. That's a demand relationship, like Paul and Stacy say. And not only that is it a demand relationship, but it's not going to get you very far, because you're constantly dependent on someone else changing for you. If that person doesn't change, what's going to happen to you? You're going to be stuck. You're just going to stay over there and do nothing. So when you take personal responsibility and say, wait a second, why is that triggering me? Can I release that so that it doesn't bother me anymore? And then you do it, you're taking your personal power back, you're taking your personal responsibility, and you're going to probably improve your relationship as well. What I found with myself is that whenever I release these triggers, I always improve the relationship afterwards, whether it be with my parents, whether it be with my children, whether it be with my friends. Now, if I had known all this stuff when I was married, could be I could save my marriage. I don't know, but I didn't know that stuff at that time. But the work that I do today with couples, when I teach them how to use these techniques to stop their fights in the heat of the moment, take a step back, be able to look at it from a different point of view, find out where the trigger's coming from, what button was pushed, release those buttons, generally they say their relationship gets much better as well. Now, the other thing that happens over here is that you learn that you can look at the other person with compassion as opposed to look at the other person from a point of it's their fault. Because once you see where your button was pushed and you release it, you can then see, well, why is that person pushing that button? What's their need that's not being met? And how can I try to meet that need? Because in a marriage relationship, when you're good friends and you want to help each other and you want to be good for both of you, that's what friends do, in my humble opinion, in the world according to Ilana. In any case, I hope I answered your question. If you have another question, I'm happy to answer it. If there's any points I didn't touch on, please bring them up. I'm happy to touch on those points in future Facebook Lives as well. I thank you, Zil, for bringing that up because I think it is an important point, important distinction, even though I wasn't really talking about marriage relationships yesterday. But I totally agree that within a marriage relationship, you don't have this idea of natural consequences that one partner puts on the other. I might have a natural consequence for myself where if I don't eat breakfast, I might be hungry when it comes to lunchtime. And tomorrow I might decide to eat breakfast and I'm not hungry when it comes to lunchtime. But that's my own natural consequence, and it's not someone who is putting it on top of me, telling me, see, you didn't eat yesterday, so now you should eat today so you're not going to be hungry. That I agree. I don't think that should ever happen, and that's a very silly example, but things can get a lot more complicated than that, and within a marriage relationship, it should never be happening like that. So, thank you, Sal. I hope that answered your question. If not, you're welcome to answer it right now. What did you write over here? All right, well, I can't really see. Yes, well, that's not my idea. That's Stacy and Paul's, but I totally agree with them as well. There is that idea of domestic relationship. And I had one more point. In the olden days, when women did not have any say, they couldn't go out to work, they couldn't get a job, they couldn't earn their own money, a lot more marriages were based on demand relationships because men had the power. And I would say that today's world, there's a lot of children-parent relationships that are demand relationships where the parent says, you have to change for my sake because I can't handle what you're doing. And if you don't, you're going to get punished. And you might get your goal right now, but as they grow older, they'll probably end up running away. If you can work with them in a more compassionate way, work with your children, discuss it with them, and not from a demand point of view, but rather from a point of view of respecting their wishes, their identity, but at the same time trying to instill in them the values that you want them to have, then you'll have a much better relationship with your children and they'll want to stay with you. And I can say kudos to myself because my children, at least 4 of them, are living at home and 2 of them are living by home by choice. They could both have left the house a long time ago and both decide to stay home and live with me till they get married. And from my point of view, that means the whole world to me. So, and I'm good friends with them now, which is a nice thing, really nice thing. And I wish upon everyone else that they could have the same type of good friendships with their children as they grow older. And don't get me wrong, I'm still parent first, friend second, but I do have that good friendship with them and that relationship with them, and it's an amazing thing to have. So have a great night, morning, evening, daytime, wherever you are in this world. Remember, I make the whole world happy 1% at a time, starting with myself, and try to keep as many couples happily married as possible. If you haven't given me a like yet, give me one down below. I love getting those hearts. Thank you for the heart. And I saw it going up beforehand. And if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to press the bell notification to be notified every time I make a new video, and the subscribe button so you'll get that bell notification if you pressed it. Have a great day from IlanaMichelson.com.